Welcome. All right, midpoint formula. You guys are going to have to help me think of a great kind of snazzy way to kick off each of our lectures here as we're going through the school year. I never know quite what to say to get things started. Maybe we need to play a little music or have a little symbol, something good going on here just to get your attention, right? So today we're going to talk about the midpoint formula, and the midpoint formula is kind of exactly how it sounds. It's the mid, so the middle, and it's a point, so it's the middle point of a line segment. Now it has to be a line segment, hitting you with some vocab here for our geometry class. Remember, a segment is going to have two endpoints. So when you see these given endpoints, you know that if you have two of them, you have a line segment, which is going to have a specific beginning and a specific end, as opposed to a line, which can pass through points but keeps going, right? That's going to be your line. And then your ray, remember, is going to have one specific endpoint. It may pass through several points, but it's going to keep going in that direction. Okay, so this one's your line, this one's your line segment, and this one is your ray. So just a quick little review of line segments there before we get started with midpoint. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and graph this question here, question number 4. And I'm not going to do the midpoints of all of these problems. You guys will get practice, and you can do some practice on midpoint formula in your workbooks. But I do want to show you two different things that you're going to be asked to do. One of those things is going to be to have two endpoints and have to find the middle. The other is going to be to find an endpoint given the middle and the end point. So two different things are going on here. So let's start here. The point 1, -2. So 1, -2 is right here. And the point -2, -1. So -2, -1 is right here. And we want to find the midpoint between those two endpoints. Okay. Sometimes on a graph, we can tell exactly where that midpoint is going to be. In fact, I'm just going to put kind of a green dot right there where I think the middle of that point is going to be. The formula for finding midpoints is to take the average, and that kind of makes sense because if we think of the middle between two values, we think of its average. So we're going to add together the x values and divide it by 2. So take the average of our x values. We're going to add together our y values and divide that by 2. And that will give us the coordinate point that is actually the midpoint. And that is the midpoint formula. Okay, so let's try that. Let's try that on this one right here. Let's add together our x values. So 1 plus a -2, and I'm going to be dividing that by 2. And then we're going to add together our y values, -2 plus a -1, and I'm going to be dividing that by 2. And let's see what we get here. So 1 plus a -2 is a -1, divided by 2 is a -1/2. So -1/2, comma, and then -2 plus a -1 is a -3, so -3/2. And let's see if that looks about right. Okay, let's plot this point. -1/2 goes to here, and -3/2 is like -1.5, so that comes down, and there it is. There is the midpoint between these two endpoints. Pretty slick. Okay. Another way, another strategy you guys can use for finding the midpoint, and I kind of will do this strategy sometimes, is to stack my values, stack my points. So -4 and 10, I'm going to stack that one right there. And I'm going to stack this other point below it, way below it down here, because these are my endpoints. 1 and 10. Okay. And I'm looking for, right, this average in between. Okay. So if you have these kind of in these columns up and down right here, it makes them easy to add and then divide by 2. So -4 plus 1, got that. It's -3 divided by 2, so -3 halves. And 10 plus 10 is 20, divided by 2 is 10. So that's a nice schematic to use to find that point that's halfway between those 2 points. Okay, let's go on to this last piece, which is this target of kind of working backwards. And let's go ahead and try this question number 8 right here. And I think I have a graph that will allow us to look at this graphically, and then we can talk about how you can solve for this numerically. This is different. See how it's one endpoint and the midpoint? You got to pay attention to that. So we're trying to find the other endpoint. So let's graph this. Let's see, 2 and 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 2, 5. That's the one endpoint, and I'm going to label that as an endpoint so I remember that that's what that is. And 1, 9. Oops, looks like I'm going to go off the graph here. That's okay. We're going to make it work. 1 and 9. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And that is my midpoint. Okay, so what that means is, and this is a little bit tricky to think about, what that means is this, as I start to draw this line segment, I actually have to go to the middle and then keep going on my graph to another endpoint up here somewhere, right? And so the trick is going to be, how do I find that endpoint? Well, on a nice piece of graph paper, we could kind of estimate about what's going on here. I think I went like over one box and then up 1, 2, 3, 4 boxes. So if I went over one box and went up 1, 2, 3, 4 boxes again, I could find that other endpoint. So you can use a graph to help you with that. But I'd like to show you what I usually do with this midpoint and endpoint idea, and kind of use the same idea as an example of stacking your points. Okay? So let's go ahead and put an endpoint down. That endpoint is 2, 5. All right? I know my midpoint this time. This is the middle, right there. And that is the point 1 and 9. Okay. So what we can do to find the other endpoint is to look for the pattern of how am I getting from a 2 to a 1. What did I have to do? Now let's see, 2 minus 1 is going to give me a 1. If I do that same pattern again, subtract another 1, I get 0. Let's look and see if that looks about right. Oh yeah, it does look like, if I drew my picture up, it looks like my x value could be 0 for that other endpoint. Let's look at our y values. It looks like to go from 5 to 9, I had to add 4. So if I follow that same pattern and add 4 again, that's going to give me a 13. And if I counted up these boxes, all the way to that top spot right there, that would probably be a 13 on the y value. So this idea of following your pattern is a great way to find that other endpoint as well. All right. There you go, guys. A little more geometry to work on this week. All right, have a great week and take care.